This is what my office studio sounds like with no sound treatment, and your room might sound similar to this right now. And this is what my studio sounds like with all of the sound dampening applied to the room. And I'm not using a single acoustic foam panel anywhere in here. If you can, try to put on a pair of headphones for this video because it's going to help you hear the difference in audio a lot better. Let's get right into the first tip, and that is to lay down a rug in your room. Take a look at the flooring that you are sitting on right now. Do you have hardwoods? Is it tile or cement? Well, you need to put a rug on top of that because it's going to do a fantastic job of absorbing a lot of that sound and helping to stop those reflections. A lot of people think that, hey, my walls are the biggest source of reflection and reverb and echo in my room, and there is a lot of truth to that, but actually the floor and ceiling are oftentimes the biggest culprits for bad audio. So there are two things that you want to do when you're picking out a rug for your space. First off, find one that is big enough to almost completely cover up the floor of the space that you're going to be capturing audio in. And next, try to find a rug that has a nice high pile. Think shag carpet, think 70s. That is definitely going to do the best at absorbing all that audio. For the best effect, you want to stay away from the shorter, low pile carpet. Now, I'm breaking that rule in here because I roll a lot of stands and equipment around in here, and I didn't want it getting caught up on that shag carpet. But if you don't have a lot of gear like that in your space, definitely go with something that is a higher pile. The next thing you can do is hang curtains. If you're in a room with a lot of windows, you need to cover those up because glass is actually one of the most reflective surfaces in the world. So you want to hang some nice thicker curtains if you can to help break up those sound waves and absorb them more than actually just hitting that glass and bouncing right back again into your microphone, causing more echo and reverb. The next thing you can do is add upholstered furniture to your space. You see couches in studios and mixing booths all the time, and those aren't there just to provide a nice comfy spot for the producers and artists to sit, but they actually do a lot for your sound. And if you record videos, podcasts, or voiceovers in your bedroom, that actually works great because your bed works as a giant sound dampener already. So that's awesome. Another thing you can do is hang moving blankets. They're cheap, easy to find, and you may already have some boxed up in your garage somewhere. Now, if you're recording video and you're hanging those moving blankets close to your subject, you want to avoid colorful ones because they'll actually cast that color right back onto your subject. Now, I know a lot of moving blankets come in that typical navy blue, and you actually want to avoid those if you're recording videos because, like I just said, they cast that blue right back onto your subject. So I've actually found some pretty cheap black ones on Amazon, and I've linked them down below. Sound blankets are a lot thicker and can absorb the audio even better. So if you can afford them, definitely pick some up. But really, these moving blankets do a fantastic job and they're just so cheap. However you choose to hang your moving blankets is up to you, but you could easily just kind of nail them to a wall or hang them on like a pipe or a fan or something that you have overhead. I've just hung mine on the unistrut that I have on my ceiling that I use for mounting my lights. The next thing you can do to better sound dampen and soundproof your space is actually to add a piece of weather stripping to the bottom of your door. So take a look at the room you're in right now. How big is the gap underneath your door until it hits the floor? If you have carpet, it may not be a very big space, but if you have hardwoods like I do, that gap was almost a ½ inch. So I just picked up a cheap piece of weather stripping from my local hardware store and screwed it into the bottom of my door. And it does a fantastic job of keeping the audio from outside of the room from spilling into the room. So if you have kids or TVs blaring, this actually does a great job of kind of soundproofing your room and keeping any of that, background audio from leaking into your recordings. Another great thing about it is that it also keeps the sound that you're making from spilling out into the rest of the house and bothering your family or roommates. And if you want to take this to like a whole nother level, you can actually swap out the door to the space that you're recording in. Go over to your door right now and give it a good old knock. Chances are it's completely hollow. And with hollow doors, it allows a lot more background noise to seep into the room from people talking and TVs and things like that. So what I've done is actually install a nice solid wood door. And man, when I close that thing, it feels like there's a pressure change and all of a sudden everything's nice and quiet and I absolutely love it. Choosing to sit on an Apple box for this whole video was a bad idea, so add a little cushion. much better. If you have a lot of flat, empty walls in your space like I did, you definitely need to do something to treat those for audio. And the best thing you can do is hang some sound panels. And no, I don't mean these ugly acoustic foam panels that you can find a million different versions of on Amazon. I mean, you'll see something like this in just about every YouTuber space, and obviously they come in different colors, but man, these really don't work that well. I hate to break it to you. And even myself, when I was first starting out, I thought that these would do what I need them to do, but they don't. And here's why. Basically, if you look at these at their shallowest point, they're not very thick. And this is actually a nicer sound panel, and it's only about maybe a ½ inch thick in that spot. So it doesn't do a lot to absorb audio. What it actually does a okay job of is actually diffusing the audio and kind of breaking up that echo so that when it hits it, it doesn't bounce directly back into the source. It can kind of diffuse a little bit because of this triangle shape here. So if you want something that just diffuses the audio a little bit, yes, this will do that, but by no means is this something that can absorb all of that audio and really reduce your echo. And if you actually talk to audiophiles and professional sound engineers, this is not the first thing that they recommend. They recommend something like these sound panels that I have back here. Now, I built these sound panels myself, and it was actually pretty easy to do. I just followed along with a YouTube tutorial that I found, and I'll link that down below as well, so I'm not gonna explain how to build them. So what makes these sound panels different from the foam ones is that they're actually about 4 inches thick, and they're full of Roxul insulation. And the ones that I built are 2 foot by 4 foot, and they just do such a great job of absorbing the audio and keeping it from reflecting back and causing more echo and reverb in your room. Now, the more of these that you can build or buy and hang up around your room, obviously the better your audio is gonna sound. But I only have 4 of them in here, and it's already doing a great job. And I actually have one hanging from the ceiling as well, right above my editing bay, so that when I'm doing that editing, the sound isn't reflecting right off the ceiling above me and, you know, hitting the floor and everything like that. That is actually something that you commonly see in professional audio editing bays. They have a bunch of sound panels above their head. So if you can actually hang a bunch of them from the ceiling in your space, it's gonna do a really great job of reducing the reverb in your room. Now, hanging these from the ceiling is a little bit trickier to do because they're a lot heavier than foam because they have a wood frame. So what I did was actually build an entire suspension system that can go right into the unistrut that I'm already using for hanging my lights. But there are a bunch of more simple ways to do it, and you can just watch some of the tutorials out there on how to build these and hang them. Now, besides sound dampening and treating your space, there are of course many other ways to improve your audio, and I'm not gonna go into all the different techniques in this video, but as a general rule of thumb, you want your microphone as close to the audio source as possible. So right here, I have the microphone about maybe 6 inches from my mouth, and of course it's in the shot here, but normally I would frame it out of the shot so you can't see it, but still as close to my mouth as possible, maybe 6 inches to a foot if I can get it there. Depending on the type of microphone you use, that's of course going to greatly affect your sound quality. So if you're using something like a condenser or dynamic microphone that oftentimes you see used in podcasts, your audio is going to sound pretty good and deep and rich, especially because the microphone is just so close to your mouth when you're using it. Shotgun microphones like I'm using here, this is the Rode NTG2, do a really good job at picking up audio from just a specific direction. So of course you want to point it right at your source in the most direct, line of sight that you can, and anything off axis. So if I come over here and talk, it's definitely not really picking up the audio, and it's gonna sound much more room tony and echoey. Lavalier microphones also do a pretty good job of eliminating background noise, but they're definitely not as deep and bassy as some other microphones. Now, hopefully this goes without saying, but step number 1 before you even press record is to turn off all the noise making things in your space. So air conditioning units, fans, TVs, really loud hard drives, things like that. You want to power those down and just lower that background noise and noise floor as much as you can. Here's another audio example of what this room sounds like without any sound treatment. And this is exactly what it sounded like when I first moved into this space. So here's a final audio test with all the sound dampening applied in my studio space, and it should sound a lot better. And guys, if you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe right now because I have a ton more videos coming out in shooting, editing, lighting, gear reviews, everything like that, and you don't want to miss it. All right, I'll see you in the next video.